Hello Internet and welcome to the Nintendo Sushi Show episode 100. My name is Ace and joining me here today we have history's favourite president, Gabraham Lincoln. Gabe, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going really good.
And Long Island's walk-in synonym dispensary, Colin Moriarty. How's it going?
Thank you. It's going well. Thank you for having me and congratulations on 100 episodes. A big deal.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Right, so for, 100 episodes now, I've been introducing Gabe here as history's favourite president, Gabraham Lincoln.
That's me.
Okay.
I've got the beard and everything.
You're a big
Yes.
American history, big politics sort of aficionado.
Aficionado?
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
I'm going
I
for
like
the,
that
for the
word, yeah,
synonym dispensary thing for you.
You've been reading the thesaurus.
Yeah.
This morning.
I've got it right here. So was Abraham Lincoln history's favourite president, or is that just some bullshit that's come out of my mouth?
No, I think there's only three presidents that are relevant in that respect: Washington, Lincoln, and FDR. So I think that most people would agree with you. He's probably our most important president, I would say.
Did he hunt vampires? Because I watched a film that told me that he did.
There's rumors about that. I don't know if he really had time to do it during the Civil War, but
starting the slavery and everything.
yeah, no, he's a really funny and interesting character in American history. So people we hate most of our presidents, but people really do authentically love Abraham Lincoln. Yes, it's an accurate thing to say.
What about Gabraham Lincoln? Gabraham Lincoln was obviously America's best
I'm gonna have to be the
president.
second favorite president.
Yeah.
I think he's.
Yeah, he was our Bizarro World president during our Bizarro World Civil War.
That's me. Gabraham Lincoln.
Right, cool. So, Colin, obviously we was born both mid-80s, yeah?
Yep, I was 84.
Okay, so he's kind of the little baby here.
I'm a baby.
But we sort of Nintendo was a big deal when we was growing
Absolutely.
up. Less so over here. It's kind of Sega won over here.
Sega won.
Nintendo kind of like because Sega do what Nintendo and everything like that.
Sega take ages.
Right, of course.
Yeah, you gotta flip that way around.
Yeah.
And so basically, what's your kind of your history with Nintendo, I suppose?
Well, my brother, I talk about my brother a lot, my older brother, Dagan. He's 11 years older than me, and he's the one who really introduced me to gaming as a child. And, New York City, which is right outside, right near where I grew up, was one of the test markets for NES really early on. And so we had some exposure to NES, I think, pretty early. And I think it was in 1986 that we went to buy a console. And I have very vague memories of driving with my brother and my dad in his pickup truck. He had like a Mazda pickup truck and going and getting the NES. And they just kind of all went from there. The NES is still my favorite console of all time. I still think it has arguably the best catalog of games of all time. If you're judging things from a pure gameplay perspective, it doesn't get much better than Mega Man 1 through 6 and Castlevania 1 through 3. There you go. Yeah, perfect. I saw it. I was going to reference it at some point. Games like Mario 3, Mega Man 3, Castlevania 3 are all 10s in my mind. So I plus Ninja Gaiden and Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and Chrysalis and Star Tropics. I mean, there's a bunch of great games. So my history with Nintendo is very early, and I was a huge Nintendo fan and still really consider myself a huge Nintendo fan. We just did a conversation with Colin on YouTube about my relationship with Nintendo and how they're still actually my favorite company. They've just broken me so badly that I don't really relate to them anymore. But yeah, my history with Nintendo goes way back, and I always, until I would say I got my PS1 in '97, considered myself a Nintendo first gamer. And they still make great experiences and experiences that put smiles on your face today. But I just don't feel like the heart and soul of the company is really there anymore, in my opinion.
I agree completely. I think it saddens me a little bit because they used to be like the forefront of gaming, and they used to kind of just be in charge, and everything that came out that they brought out was the best. And at the minute, it's kind of like your secondary console. At the minute, like the Wii U for me is I love Nintendo and I love the games that come out on the Wii U. But then at the same time, it's somewhat of a secondary console to a lot of people behind the Xbox One and the PS4, which kind of it upsets me a lot.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, Greg talked about it too in that respect of being a secondary console and what does that mean and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's fine if that's what it is, but I don't think Nintendo wants it to be that.
Oh no, definitely not. No.
And like to do that, they have to get that third-party support, and they have to have some new ideas into new games. The Wii, the original Wii, is the kind of the weird part of the graph of a slanting down console sales chart. So they need to figure something out, because the one thing that they do really well is that they make games that work, and they make games that that are fun to play. It's just that there's not enough of them to carry on the console by itself, and so that's when you need help.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
I'm sorry.
No, go. Keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in this age of broken games and this, bullshit that people have to go through with publishers releasing half-broken games, Nintendo doesn't do that, and we should definitely be appreciative of that. Which is why I think Zelda won't come out this year. I think that they'll probably iron out kinks and get it out next year. But I'm appreciative of what they make and what they do. I just wish that they had better relationships with developers that could help them. You know?
Yeah, and that was you've kind of segued into my next question a little bit. In that, do you think they need to? How long do you think they can carry on going on with their old IPs? You know, your Mario, your Donkey Kong, your Metroids, that kind of thing. How long do you think you can keep going with that before they're gonna have to go, right, we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to find some new characters, some big characters that are gonna kind of push us forward into this next generation of gaming.
I think that they could probably do it for a while. I just think what is their expectation of sales? With people were saying Mario Kart 8 and Smash were going to be these huge sales, dynamos, and they really weren't. I mean, they both sold a few million copies, but it's not like that's not extraordinary. It's really actually pretty good considering how many Wii U's are out there. But a game of Smash Brothers caliber should sell many more copies than it sold, and actually push a lot of units. I actually think that there's a lot of jadedness about Nintendo and generally within the gaming community.
Yeah.
If you're a Nintendo fan, you're going to own their stuff, and that's fine, and you're patient, and you've learned to be patient, and it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome, actually.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Where it's just, you kind of identify, it's like, well, they're Nintendo, and they make their games, and I like their first-party games, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, and, more power to you. But Mario has the power to sell tens of millions of copies if it was just done right. And whether it's a 3D Mario or something like that, that's fine, and we'll see what happens with the future Mario that they make, not these kind of reiterations of past Mario ideas. But I think it can go on for a while. I just think that slowly but surely they're going to become more and more relevant in a really much more competitive gaming landscape. It took Sony only 13 months to sell 18.5 million PS4s.
Yeah.
Which is an extraordinary number, and they did that. As Greg and I were talking, I think on Kind of Funny Gamescast, they did that without games, which is extraordinary. Imagine what happens when there's nothing on PS4 that like first party games or exclusives that anyone has to play. I mean,
no.
Infamous is good, and Killzone's good, but it's not. When Uncharted comes and Bloodborne, these games that people really want to play, it's going to show that software matters, and software matters from different places. Even The Order, which is it's exclusive, not made by a studio Sony owns. So they just need to look at doing business in a different way, I think. They started doing that with Platinum. They did that with Team Ninja with Metroid on the Wii and stuff like that. But they need to do more of that. Cultivate your new IP and let some studios experiment with your old IP as well. Instead of having, a Musou Zelda game, like what happens if you just pay a bunch of money and give the Zelda IP to a studio that can make like I was talking to someone about this, like what if Obsidian made a Zelda game, or something like that, and was like, trust someone outside of your family to like do something different, and I bet you get a lot of attention for it.
That's it. They kind of holding. You get them. You get like the impression that they hold them like the precious babies that they don't want anyone else. But there's so many talented, like really talented studios out there they'll take these IPs and can just do new things that they've never even thought of with them. And Nintendo's always been really good at innovating on their own IPs and kind of doing as much as they can with Mario, but it's kind of plateaued a little bit now. And I think that a good way of kickstarting like a new revolution of games would be to send them out to these studios who are creative studios, and we're seeing great things coming from them. And I'd love to see them take an IP and, just say, right, you can have that, you go with it, and let's see what you can do with that, with kind of Metroid, or because we're waiting ages, a long, long time, for a new Metroid game or a new Zelda game, and between them times,
got to get those Donkey Kongs out, retro.
Yeah, you got to be kind of sending them out to other developers that can do interesting things with them. I mean, that's my personal opinion, anyway.
Well, I think the decline obviously started with the N64, and it was both Sony and Nintendo's sort of bullheadedness that kind of spiraled that, really. Because obviously the reason why that whole Sony PlayStation adapter thing fell through was because Nintendo realized that Sony would be the ones that were making the money on the actual CDs. And they were like, nah. Nah. That's not how this works. Like, developers pay us a shit ton of money to produce the cartridges. This is the way it's standing. So then they went into. That's how they got into that bad deal with Philips with the CDI, the awful Zelda games that nobody talks about. Thank God. was because they was gonna do the whole CD thing again with Philips, but Nintendo were gonna keep that cut, and then Nintendo just saw everything that was happening, like with Sega CD and everything like that, and was just like, no, we're pulling out, we're doing the N64. And I think, like you said on that Nintendo thing, there was no load times, and he was like, yeah, 'cause it's fucking nothing to load.
Yeah, 'cause it's nothing to load.
Yeah, I mean, that was the major problem. I mean, actually Blake Harris does a really nice job of talking about that, I think, more in depth than anyone in console wars about specifically that time, 1990 or 1991, when Sony kind of got stabbed in the back by Nintendo, and how that kind of spawned, naturally. I mean, the business deal was probably very, very slanted in Sony's favor. I mean, it clearly was, but how that spawned a competitor that basically almost killed them, which is really ironic and interesting. Which is why I always say that the blood between those two companies is still so bad. I think that it's more likely that if Nintendo went third party, they'd actually go to Xbox. But just screw Sony basically. I think that the funny thing is that N64 was a good console and it had great games. Majora's Mask is like one of my favorite games of all time, and it has a good catalog of first-party games and even some third-party games, and GameCube even, I think, more so. I fucking loved GameCube.
GameCube is my favorite console of all time.
It's a fantastic console. I would definitely put it in like my top 3, my top 5 for sure. And at the time, I played, even though PS2 was so dominant, and I even had an Xbox and was messing around with that. Man, I had everything on GameCube, and they had third-party support that seemed exclusive at the time. Anyway, we often talk about Resident Evil 4 and Beautiful Joe, games that came out later from Capcom. Mikami obviously wasn't well informed about what he was saying about Resident Evil 4's exclusivity, but
didn't he say something like he'll die or something before he sees it?
He'll cut his own head off.
He'll cut his own head off. Yeah, that didn't happen.
If it ever came out on another console. But GameCube had a certain charm that I think Wii also actually had, and but Wii for me fell apart very quickly. And I was buying a lot of third-party games on Wii. I remember playing like that 007 game. What the hell was it called? It came out like it was a shooter, first-person shooter. It came out in like 2008.
I think I know which one. Was it the Quantum of Solace game?
Yeah, Quantum of Solace. That's exactly what it was.
God, that was a bad game.
And then I some early like Lego Star Wars and Zack and Wiki and all that kind of stuff. And then I was just like, I can't with this, man. I can't with this machine.
The amount of games I got, and I was like, it's alright, I'll accept the lesser version of this game because it's Nintendo. And then you kind of got to a point where you was like, these games don't look as good. They don't play as well as the PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions. Why am I still doing this to myself? I'm paying the same amount of money for this game, and I'm getting a lesser product. And I think that didn't help them in a lot of ways.
No, I don't think so either. I think that, they broadened their reach temporarily with Wii, which was awesome, but that's not a sustainable model for business. What it did was give them a lot of cash, and that's the brilliance of it, is they have almost $20 billion in cash. So. Which lets them make many mistakes. Wii could just tank, and
they could just take.
They'll be totally fine. 3DS obviously makes them money. 3DS's numbers are down, but over DS's obviously, but nothing's going to sell like the DS sold.
No. I mean, with this obviously the new 3DS coming out, which is some sort of botched crazy release, even though it's not even come out yet. Like the whole. I mean, is the XL just coming out over there, and we've got the smaller one and the XL.
Yeah, we just have the XL here, and no power brick, which is funny as hell.
Oh yeah, but we've not had a power brick
for a long time.
The original XL didn't have a power brick over here. It had one in Japan. Weird. It had one for you, but I mean, we didn't get one then. So I expected that. Like I've got the pre-release, the
little one,
the baby
one,
the European one now, and I mean it's great. It feels. I mean. It's not as classy as a Vita when you're playing it. Yeah. It still feels a little bit like a toy, but it's far, far, far superior than the.
But my point is why
we got the nice
the color buttons,
the colored
that's
SNES,
nice.
Super
cool.
Famicom buttons.
My point with that is why buy it, because they're not supporting it with software. In my opinion, anyway, kind of we got this release of this games constantly. It's like that's great. Where's the software? Because I can play all these games on my XL, and I can have the lovely big screen, and I'm fine with that. I wanted a game to come out with it, and I know they've had Xenoblade, but obviously we've all played that on the Wii, we've all played that before. But I wanted them to bring out a game that was an exclusive to this new 3DS, and again they didn't, and I don't know why people. I don't know how they're going to expect people to go out and buy that thing without software to support it.
The whole thing is that it's more powerful.
Yeah.
But all they've advertised that the extra power does is move around the home screen quicker.
Yeah.
It's just like,
really?
Yeah,
really?
It's weird. 3DS is in a weird spot, I think, too, because it's just, I agree, there's just not software there. I have a 3DS, and I play a couple games on it a year, but there's nothing I played much more Virtual Console. I played Shovel Knight on it a lot, and obviously like old. I'm playing the original Metroid now on my 3DS, and it's a great game, obviously, but it's the same thing with the Wii U. Like, I'm tempted to buy a Wii U, but I don't even care about any of the games that are coming out for it. I just like, except for Zelda, I want to play Zelda, but it's like I'm more excited to just have access to the old catalog, and I think that says a lot about where Nintendo is right now. Because, like you said, it's like, where is the new Metroid game? Like, why is Retro making Donkey Kong games?
I know.
Like, you really have to ask yourself these kinds of questions. That's not to say that they can't make a great platformer. They've made great platformers. It's just retro, and it's not like to say Metroid is this massive series, because it really isn't. I think a lot of people have to understand that Metroid is just not a big deal to people that don't.
And it didn't even sell well in Japan. Like.
No, but to me, it's like that's the kind of stuff people want, is something really sharp and noticeable from a studio like Retro that you have that's talented. It's very weird. And the same thing with like F-Zero and a few other things. Or like, why not take some of your own old IP? Like, I always joke around with something like Balloon Fight or something like that. Like, do something, or Ice Climber. Like, do something totally weird. Like, you could totally take these old IP that are dormant or dead, even Kid Icarus, which is somewhat semi-dormant, I guess, and like do something really cool. They did it with 3DS, but do something clever and big,
And that's the stuff that they
God forbid you make a new IP.
But that's the stuff
Splatoon,
that
Splatoon.
they can be sending out to the third parties. They can be sending out these ones that, whenever I play Smash Bros, I look and I'm like, God, I ain't seen them for a lot of years. I ain't seen that for a lot of years. I ain't seen that for a lot of years. Like, why aren't we sending them out to the third-party developers? Like, if you're not going to do anything with Ice Climbers, you're not going to do anything with Balloon Fight, send them to the third parties. At least let someone do something.
Maybe not those two games.
Maybe not those two games, but...
Let's worry about a Metroid before
let's worry about a Metroid first,
orchestral versions of the Balloon Fight theme.
2D Metroid on the new 3DS. That's what I wanted. That's all I want. That's all I want. Like...
Will you be playing Majora, then? I think it's your favorite Zelda of all time, kind of thing.
Absolutely, man. I love Majora's Mask, and I always say and I've loved it since day one. I'll never forget the day I bought it. And I wrote about it on IGN a while ago, I think, but just like how much that game meant to me and how seriously different that game was. See, the beautiful thing about Nintendo in both first parties and third parties, and especially on the NES, was that they constantly changed the way they were doing things. You look at Castlevania to Castlevania 2, and the difference between those two games and the way Konami approached it. You look at Zelda and Zelda 2 and the difference between those two games. Mario and Mario USA and the difference between those games. Obviously, they just reskinned Mario USA, but there was a willingness to do something a little different and kind of challenge expectations and conventions. And then you return to that formula in the third one, so that it's like... so Mario 3 kind of brings you back to where you want to be. Castlevania 3 brings you back, etc., and so on. What I loved about Majora's Mask was that it was made so quickly on an engine that was already really proven on N64. They made it in like a year and a half, I think, not even. And what I was really impressed with Majora's Mask was how different and imminent it was. It was dark as hell. That game was really dark. It was very different from anything that ever happened before. You couldn't dick around in that game, which is what I really loved.
It terrified
me. You had to move.
The pressure on that game. I couldn't play it for long periods of time. It had a similar feel to like when you play the first Resident Evil game, where you're like, I can't fuck up. Like, if I fuck up, I'm gonna throw this game against the wall. And that kind of pressure that Majora's Mask gives you, like, I'm looking forward to getting that back, because I haven't felt that for a long time. I felt it with a couple of the Resident Evil games, because I think that's what the Ink Reels did for me in the Resident Evil games. But that pressure, that Majora's Mask.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that.
I like the Ink Reels.
I love the ink ribbons, man. I love that. I wish that they would. The fact that you can't save and you only have you only save like 8 times or something, that's awesome. Oh,
the amount of times when I was younger and you kind of have your mum calling up, like, dinner's ready, and you're like, no, it isn't ready. It's not ready until I find another ink reel. You can warm that shit up later.
The thing with Majora, though,
so funny.
It's got, the thing with Majora, it's got reverse episode 1 syndrome. Whereas when episode 1 came out, everyone kind of liked it, and then everyone now, it's like, it's the worst film ever. You know what I mean? Star Wars Episode 1.
It is the worst film ever. It is the worst.
The opposite thing happened with Majora. It came out, and it kind of... I don't feel like it was very well received. There was a lot of people slagging it off, but then now everyone's like, it's my favourite Zelda game of all time. I'm like, is it... Or was you one of those fellas, like, when it first came out, who was kind of slagging it out?
Yeah. This is what I always say. I always make fun of people with what I call revisionist history, which is like... It happens with Majora's Mask. I think it happened with Wind Waker really bad too. I love Majora's Mask. My friends from high school would tell you, like, I was going on and on about that game 2 days after I beat it. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, this game is special. It's different. Termina is different than Hyrule. Like how dark the color palette is. I loved waiting around and, like, I was talking to Greg about it not too long ago. all the masks and all the side quests were awesome, like the Bomber's Notebook or whatever, where you had to like a dude would just run by on the second day at this place, and you had to like wait and talk to him and get something. It was like it was so cool and different, and I remember I have the same memories of you guys do too. Is like nothing could beat Ocarina of Time, which I think, God forbid, I don't want to offend anyone. I think Ocarina of Time and Mario 64 are great games, both vastly overrated.
I'm playing back through Ocarina now because I want to play it before Majora comes out. I've not played it for fucking a long time, and I'm like, this isn't as good. I mean, it's good. Of course, it's fucking brilliant. Yeah, but it's just not as good as I remember it to be. Like, I don't know if that's like maybe the memories were nostalgia kind of thing. Oh fuck, because it was the first time like you were stood in a field and you could see a mountain fucking right over there, and you can fucking run to that, climb up the mountain. And that was like massive for me when I was like a teenager, like a young teen and that. But like, I mean, now that's a small, tiny world. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. For me, a lot of the temples still hold up. A lot of the puzzles, a lot of the kind of like.
It's bad. I'm just saying it's not what I remember.
Well, my favorite Zelda's always been Wind Waker from day one. It was the first Zelda I ever played because I'm young. I'm a child. It was the first Zelda I ever played was Wind Waker. And I loved it, and then went back and played all the other Zeldas. So when Wind Waker HD came out, like, I actually think Wind Waker HD, the improved Wind Waker. Like, for me, it improved Wind Waker. But yeah, like you were saying earlier, a lot of people kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And I was there day one. The second that came out on the GameCube.
It was fucking infuriating to watch that, actually, because I remember. I went off on people about it. I'm like, dude, like, Wind Waker was a great game. When I remember getting it in 2003, it was, I remember spreading the map out on my bedroom floor that came with the strategy guide and like really like jumping in. I'm like, this game's great. And I remember when the game was shown off. I used to be a Game Facts kid, obviously, and like that's where I came from. And people hated that goddamn game. I'll never forget it. Like, they used to call it Zelda. I don't know if you guys remember that. And they everyone just hated on that game and hated on it. And then suddenly, at some point in the last like 2 years, everyone's like, "Oh, Wind Waker's awesome." I'm like, what is this revisionist history? You all hated Wind Waker. I know you guys all hated it. And now you guys are suddenly, and same thing with Majora's Mask. Like, the interesting thing to me is that a game like Ocarina of Time is a great game. I agree. It's a great game. It's a revolutionary game.
Yeah.
But it's the proving ground for what Majora's Mask was able to do later, and Wind Waker was able to do later. And frankly, and I know this is going to be very controversial, Mario 64 is really overrated too. It's, again, a revolutionary game, and I think Sunshine is actually the game that really took that formula and made it better. I know people who don't like that game. I love Mario
Sunshine. I love Sunshine.
So those were the proving grounds for what came later.
Yeah.
Obviously, Galaxy is the culmination of 3D Mario, which is, a perfect game, basically.
And Galaxy 2 even improved upon a perfect game for me. I'm playing through that at the minute with the kind of new release, and it's true. I like to derail this podcast a little bit. That's my job on this podcast is to just derail it.
Bad train drive.
But yeah, I kind of was listening to I can't remember what it was on. It might have been on your on the Game Over Greggy show. But you're talking about the fact that you was wrongly diagnosed with celiac.
Yes.
Now, as someone with celiac, I've got celiac.
That sucks.
And when I heard that conversation that you had, I can't remember what you said. It was something like, "You ruined my life. You took away all my favorite food, and you made me cry in front of my friends." Like, that moment for me was one of the funniest moments I've ever heard in a podcast, because it resonated so much with, because I've got celiac, and I don't know about for you, but when you went to the doctors and they kind of went through the whole thing, and they're like, "Oh, well, if you just don't eat wheat, it'll be fine." Like, they just throw it out there. And I'm like, "No, doctor. If you're telling me I can't have good pizza, I can't drink beer ever again, I will not be fine." So it was
that's the way I felt. Yeah,
it fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. I was just wondering about your experience with celiac, because that for me it really resonates with me. It really made me laugh when you were talking about it, because I was like, I feel your pain. You know what I mean? I feel your pain. But you got out.
Yeah, I got out of it. Oh my god,
you got out.
Blessing, man. It really was. Like, so I've had, I've talked about this many times, I think, but I have like really bad stomach and colon issues, and I've always had them. Like, it's a kind of a shitty, no part of the pun, problem to have.
The pun intended there.
But I went to the doctor. I'm 30 years old now. I was gonna say I was 29, but I'm not even 29. I'm 30 years old, and I remember as a very little kid, like, every year or two going to a doctor and being like, to the point where I was like, there's something wrong, man. I don't know what it is. To the point where I think even my dad, who's an awesome guy, I think he was even thinking like, is there anything really wrong with you? Like, because like the doctors like couldn't find anything. I remember doing I don't know if you could. It's kind of. I don't think they do it anymore. But barium enemas, where they would like you have to drink like a gallon of like shit, and then they like. And doing. I remember going to Boston University Medical Center for that, like to go to like experts and stuff. No one could find anything that was wrong with me. Yeah. But like I had like these crippling pains, and the shits and all this kind of stuff was terrible, right? Yeah. Like. And so eventually, like, I was 25 or 26, and I went to a doctor, and they're like, you might have celiac disease. And this was around the time where they actually started testing for that stuff.
Yeah.
So they gave me a blood test, and they called me back. And they called me when I was at E3. And this was in 2011, maybe? 2010? I don't know, something like that.
So this is slightly relevant to gaming. Because we mentioned E3, so we're fine. We're still on track.
Exactly. So it's all good now. And yeah, they told me that I had celiac disease, and I started hysterically crying on the phone. And
as an Italian, as a guy that's got Italian origins, though, I've been told that you're not allowed good pizza anymore. That must have really hit you where it hurts.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like I remember, I always laugh. My mom's really funny, and I remember telling her. I can't. I expected. She has sympathy for me, obviously, but I remember her being like, I can't eat Sunday dinners with you anymore, and I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. And she's like, and I thought she was going to say something like, oh, we'll cook something, we'll adjust, or whatever. She's like, oh, we'll just make you something else.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thanks, Mom.
You kind of get outcast as a celiac. You got to sit and watch people eat this food that you love, and you become an outcast.
But the irony of it was, now here's where things got really fucking weird, because my girlfriend was like, stick with it. You obviously have it. They tell you have it. Blood tests are not conclusive, but they suggest that, like, they're almost like 100% that they suggestive. But the gold standard is getting an endoscopy, and I just never did it because I was like, oh, fuck it.
I went there.
Me too.
We've both been there.
And it's absolutely terrible, and that's a whole other thing or whatever. But so I went about 2 years, and I never stayed gluten free for longer than like a week.
Yeah.
And I realized that like in my mind, I'm like, nothing's changing. Like, I don't feel any better. And everyone's like, just give it time. And I'm like, but I don't feel any better. Like, I really don't believe that I have this.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you have it. Just give it time. And eventually I'm like, fuck this. We're going to the doctor. And I'm going to get the endoscopy. And they did it. And then they called me back and they're like, there's absolutely no signs that you have celiac disease.
I'm in the same position. The exact same position.
I'm like, I'm going to kill myself. You have to be fucking kidding me. You ruined my life for like 2 years.
Yeah.
They're like, the blood test was false positive. Like, you definitely don't have celiac disease.
Yeah.
Like, we can see it.
Yeah.
Your villi in your stomach and stuff like that. We took samples. Like, you don't have it. And I'm like, you fucking bastards. I remember feeling like so mad on the phone. Yeah. And then immediately went and ate a cheeseburger.
Yeah, that's where I'm at now, because I don't believe that I have it. So you've inspired me now. I'm going back to the doctors.
Whilst on the phone.
I'm going to tell him.
You're a fucking bastard.
Just crying and eating
Fuck
bread.
You.
Yeah.
You should absolutely. Definitely make sure you might. The blood test is suggestive that you do have it, but there's ways to spike the blood test. Is what I found out later is that if you eat a lot of bread, it will show up as normal, and if you just stop eating gluten, it'll actually trick the test into thinking you have celiac. And that's like a problem that a lot of people encounter, which would have been nice to know.
Yeah.
Go have them shove the tube down your throat, which is always fantastic, and then you guys have your free medical care, but they'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then
tax.
Yeah, I'm gonna make the most of it. I'm gonna be like, I want one down there and one up there because it's free.
I heard you were complaining about tax the other week on Kind of Funny. And I was just like, fuck you, man. We've got it so much worse than we have.
Yeah. I think you guys do have it bad.
I think the top tier's 45% income tax. Plus, we pay like 17.5% VAT on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so we get like shafted from both ends. Like a
double endoscopy, yeah. Okay. Exactly.
That sucks.
If you're going to metaphorically shaft me, then you can medically shaft me with an endoscopy.
There we go.
Yeah, the VAT's an awesome idea. It's just like you have to get rid of the income tax.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't really make any sense to have both. That's why you don't introduce more taxes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I they went up both ways for me too, and it's not very pleasant. But and I think I told this story about how I woke up during my my colonoscopy, which was awful.
Yeah.
But and I barely the drugs, man. Oh my god, they just knock you out. They just knock you out. Like you're screwed up for. Like, I really feel like I was screwed up for 2 days after my endoscopy and after my colonoscopy.
Well, the irony.
I never got put out for mine.
The irony I was
awake
awake for mine as well, but the irony was
shit.
It's that free medical care.
Yeah, it's the free medical care. We're wasting money on morphine. I was awake for mine, and the first thing they gave me after the endoscopy was a pack of biscuits, a pack of cookies or whatever, and a cup of tea. And I was like, Do you not know anything about why you were just shoving that tube up there? I'm allergic to both of those things. Like, take them away. Don't rub it in my face when I'm feeling the most hair and the most intruded at that moment.
That's cruel.
I know it is, yeah.
That's almost as cruel as not being put out for the. Yeah, they knock you out, man. Like.
Oh no, we
in the
stay
States
away.
anyway. They just knock me the fuck out, and then I have to. I'm just. My girlfriend. I will share the videos one day. My girlfriend like took a bunch of videos of me waking up and like the things I was saying and doing, and they're just heinous. They're just so funny because you have no idea what you're doing.
When I was like 14, 15, 16, something like that. Oh, well, it was fucking September the 11th, 2001. When I came out of hospital the day that happened, and I'd been in for 6 weeks before. I had a bit of my bowel removed and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I was on like morphine for like a while afterwards. And I was on like a machine where I could keep pressing like whenever I wanted morphine. And Gabe actually came in to see me in the hospital. And
I'm a good guy.
I thought it was a frog. Like legit, I was on like all this morphine. I thought it was a frog. Like one night in the middle.
I was
of the
slippy
night,
to her. I just walked in and went, "Do a barrel roll."
Yeah. one night, the nurse like the next day said, "In the night, you were sat at the end of your bed fishing."
That's genius.
And I was like, I don't know if
he was like, that frog's gone. I'm gonna catch the bastard and let's bring him back in.
Well, they had an SNES in the hospital, you know, for like the guests, like the kids to play on and everything like that. And I'd been playing Harvest Moon, so I don't know if that was sort of. Sort of like,
probably is.
Like,
it probably is very subliminal.
You were trying on with the girl with pink hair.
Oh yeah, you gotta go for the pink hair.
Yeah, that's always my choice.
Right, Colin. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on today. It's just been
no
fucking
problem.
awesome. Do you want to plug all the stuff you're doing now?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you can find it all at kindoffunny.com and youtube.com/kindoffunny or kindoffunnygames. And I'm at Twitter, No Taxation. Always happy to talk to people there. And we do appreciate anyone that comes and joins us. We're trying something different and a little bit risky and something a little bit more intimate. And we hope that people enjoy it out there. And it's you know, we left our big comfortable jobs to do this. And the funny thing is we have no regret. I think it's the right move for us. And you know, we just love being able to do more stuff like this and be able to guest on people's podcasts and say what we need to say and do what we need to do. So we appreciate anyone that comes and supports us. And I do thank you guys for having me as well. It's always fun to talk about Nintendo. Right. I love the prevailing myth on the internet that I don't like or know anything about Nintendo or don't care about Nintendo because they're my favorite.
Oh, I know, man. You to be fair, I learned a lot about Nintendo from listening to the Beyond podcast, which is ironic.
Yeah, it's just you know, it's just I believe in tough love. That's all.
Yeah, true.
And if they get me back, I'll give them all.
Say that.
Yeah, and you don't want to see the IPs that you love, like the stuff that you love growing up. You don't want to see it get shafted. So you kind of
exactly right.
Yeah, like when you told you had celiac.
But again,
it's exactly the same way. Yeah, when Nintendo was so important to us growing up, right? And I want it to be important to the people that are coming up now.
Yeah.
To as many people as possible, but for the right reasons.
Yeah, it will be part of their childhood, like it was part of ours.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, that's it. So
but that's.
No, I was just gonna say it's PlayStation and Xbox for everyone now, and so that's cool. But it's like, you know, hopefully Nintendo has a renaissance, and you guys, you know, good luck with the next 100 episodes that you do.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, remember, he's Colin. He's no one to trifle with.
Yes.
We can. Plug it in and record things.
It's not my underwear. I'm gonna complain though, because that laundry ain't come yet.
I'm gonna complain because you're taking ages, and it's probably not even in shot what you're doing right now.
Okay. Well, here we go.
Right, yeah, you do the ad shit. I'm gonna do the glory.